So good morning, everybody. My name is Ed Baig. I'm a tech columnist with USA Today, and we're here, of course, to talk about 3D printing. For the rest of us, I put myself in that us category, and we have a very distinguished panel here.
Who's a gentleman in his late 30s. He was getting up to train for a marathon, so fit and healthy individual. He had a giant hemorrhage, and we took his MRI scan and we reconstructed it. So what you can see here is, this is the damage that the hemorrhage did. So he's missing a lot of brain tissue here. He's missing so much brain tissue, in fact, that when you think about what I was saying about a dish and growing one axon 0.5 millimeter, it's really not going to cut it. Our main point is we need to be coming up with more innovative ways of not only getting the stem cells to where they need to be, but proliferating their growth. So this was actually the first step in the process of creating a more realistic tissue engineering project, where we are trying to, our next step in this project is we've now got one of our colleagues in an MRI scanner right this moment, and she's having her entire neuroaxis scanned from the brain all the way to the spinal cord, the base of her spinal cord, and then she's going to have a MR angiogram, so we get all of her arterial system scanned, a venogram, so we get her entire venous system scanned, and also a ventricular scan, so that we can get all of the modes of entry into the nervous system scanned and reconstructed in really exquisite detail, so that then we can actually start to print in different materials, introduce fluid to the system, start to build an extracellular matrix in the areas that are lesioned, and start to try to promote growth in the area.
So on Shapeways, we now have our community is over 600,000 people who are creating stuff. They've uploaded over 3.6 million designs. And the fun thing is actually where I agree that 3D software is too hard and we need to open the content funnel. We need to make it easy for people to tell us what they want. It's still surprising to see that out of those over 600,000 people, half of them had taught themselves how to use 3D software, because they think it's so cool that they can now make anything they want, that they go through the paces and download SketchUp, or they buy even a Rhino or whatever, and then they teach themselves how to create content.
People come together, they contribute, like you said, on whether or not the thickness of this wall is to be thicker. I feel like in order to participate in 3D printing and also get really the full gamut of that quote-unquote magic experience. Like right now, sure, you can buy a printer, you can download a 3D model that someone else produced, and it's, you can see the magic of it fabricating, but the true magic comes from thinking about the concept yourself, then printing it. And I think that if you're gonna ask someone, let's say my mother, for example, who is 62, who actually does want to print, you're not gonna expect her to actually learn CAD software. But if she goes onto a platform and she has an idea for something, like a picture, or a picture of something she wants to create, and then you have this community supporting her to actually create that, like experts, intermediate people, saying, you know what, here's a tutorial to learn that software, or why don't I actually download this item for you, tweak it on CAD software that I use every day, and upload it, then it becomes so much more of a collaborative process. And I think a lot of these 3D printing companies, including myself, I mean, I'm certainly not a giant like HP, but all these companies, what we really need to do, it's not so much about competition right now. It's about spreading awareness about 3D printing technology. Like you mentioned before, people know the term 3D printing.
One of the things to me that I find so exciting and compelling about 3D printing is how it can just open up people's imaginations.
Yes.
With a very small entry level. So with Project Daniel, we had a weekend to design a prosthetic that could be used by these people in South Sudan, and we initially, 3D printing wasn't our first option. We initially started looking into what materials were in the community that we could use to assemble a prosthetic, and we sort of tried to create a space that looked like what it would look like in South Sudan, and turns out we couldn't do it. And so we turned to 3D printing, and we were glad we did in the end, because we knew at our design, by the time we got to 3D printing, we knew our design was going to be imperfect. It wasn't going to be the greatest design ever, but we thought, well, at least if we show them.
Just to explain, this was for a young boy, right, who had lost a limb?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was, with Not Impossible, we sort of embraced the mantra of help one, help many. So we always start with one person, and we we expanded out to everyone. So there are over 50,000 amputees in the particular area we're going into in South Sudan. Daniel was one kid that we read about who had both of his arms blown off, and so we centered the project around him. We called it Project Daniel. We created the Daniel arm. But what was amazing was once we got there, taught the locals how to make the prosthetics. They took to it like fish to water. They started creating environment-specific alterations to the limb in the sort of very basic MakerBot sort of CAD environment. They created, within about a week of Mick showing them how to make an arm, they created a Daniel arm for him to take home, which was made of about 5 different layers of PLA, all different colors, a sort of rainbow-colored arm, which I don't even want to, I wouldn't even want to approach doing something like that because it's such a pain in the ass, but these guys worked it out. These kids have been working with printers for a week, worked out how to do it, made it, and it looked amazing. So
yeah, and as HP, we are going to be introducing 3D printing, 3D scanning in Best Buy and many other retailers, so hundreds of point of sale. And it's pretty new, so we're going to be in learning mode, but the way we're going to approach this is going into the stores with a full solution, so capability to generate that content and demonstrate how easy it is to acquire personal content, modify personal content, and then print personal content. And that is the approach we're taking. What we're going to be demonstrating, this is what we're defining with our shopper research, but typically is what we call like real people with great ideas and great projects, right? I want to remodel my home. I need some parts. I need some pieces. That's, highly engaging activities is what we expect are the ones that will resonate the most. And to your point, we're looking into, since we have this partnership with Dremel, we're going to be experimenting different approaches into the DIY type of stores. So HP will run an extensive channel, I would say, not only testing, but really channel introduction of 3D printing end-to-end for the regular customer. I think what you shouldn't do is what you've seen so far, right? Having a printer that prints a chess piece, and that doesn't resonate. I mean, people stare at it, but they don't know what to do with it, right? And we're redesigning, Intel has these experience centers in 50 Best Buy stores. We're redesigning that area to do exactly what I was describing, showing customers how they can actually, without knowing CAD, create their own 3D creation.